So, hi, good morning. Oh, oh, overexcited. Don't be overexcited, नहीं तो बाहर भेज दूंगा. ठीक है. Emotions को अंदर रखो. So, of that two batches, I think three batches are combined. ठीक है. So 7, 10 and 5 तो पता है. So, चलो. For 7 and 10, there is a new introduction. पता तो होगा ही. Obviously, then. चलो, so anyways, मतलब I'll have to give a formal introduction. So just नाम बताऊंगा, काम स्टार्ट करते हैं. नीरज राव. ठीक है. So chalo, we'll starting with the art and culture. So as far as this topic is concerned, आज ancient medieval है. मुझे देखना पड़ेगा. But it was art and culture. Ancient and medieval. I have been fooled. मुझे आर्ट एंड कल्चर का मैसेज आया था. I'll have to check, but कोई भी बात नहीं, ठीक है. तो I can start with the ancient and medieval also. बाकी सब ठीक ना? Confirm हो तुम लोग ancient and medieval? I don't know that in what all batches what has started. I think there is a misinformation. So are we 7 and 10? Have you gone through the culture part? I'll have to make sure. एक बार पूछ लेते हैं. आर्ट एंड कल्चर है ना? एंशियंट है. चलो एंशियंट स्टार्ट करते हैं. So चलो, we'll start with the ancient and medieval. And so now listen. सारे इमोशंस बदल गए. So as far as the ancient and medieval is concerned, so let's look at the syllabus part, that where it is mentioned. So first of all, in prelims part of the syllabus, it is mentioned as the history of India and national struggle. Even modern is mentioned as a national struggle. So history of India will include both ancient, medieval, and so as the modern. And a particular phase of the modern is called as a national struggle, in which freedom struggle part is happening. Okay? So ancient and medieval, as far as this topic is concerned, when we look at the next part, basically mains exam, so is it mentioned in the mains exam? No, specifically it is not mentioned in the mains exam. And what has been mentioned, so art and culture syllabus is there. So, but they do ask question of ancient and medieval through the root of art and culture. Basically, in what art and culture, what you read, that ancient part and the medieval part, the culture of the ancient, architecture of the ancient, architecture of the medieval, but there are many such societal processes that they also ask through the root of the art and culture. So now understand that number of the questions which they have asked in last 10 years basically will start with the 2011. So from 2011 to 2030 23, this is 2011. Why we are taking 2011? Because that was the first year when the CSAT pattern started. So average number of the question from this particular section is 4, not more than that. So 4, sometimes it increases, then that 5-6 questions also they have asked in the prelim stage of exam, but generally 4 questions are there. And nowadays, from last few years, what we are seeing, that there is a more focus on the ancient part, and particularly there is a one part from the medieval which is highly emphasized in the exam, that is Vijayanagar kingdom. Then, so we'll see these all, and as far as the number of the classes are planned for this, 12 to 13. Then listen to it. So we'll start our discussion with three phases of the history, or 3 parts of the history. Right? So very first, that we divide history into 3 parts, that is prehistory, and then proto-history and history. So prehistory, proto-history, and history. So what is prehistory? Any idea? no written record. Okay? So prehistory is that part of the history where no written record is there. But then how come we get to know about the things which happened in the prehistory? On the basis of artifacts used by them. So stone tools, weapons, okay, and artifacts used by the people, that becomes the basis of the prehistory. Then what is proto-history? Where written records are there, but the problem is it hasn't been deciphered. Then so written records are there but it hasn't been deciphered. That is proto-history. So in prehistory we start with the Stone Age. Then so we start with the Stone Age. But when it comes to proto-history, so proto-history example is Indus Valley civilization. So though in Indus Valley civilization there is a, okay, in Indus Valley civilization there is a written record that is called as pictographic script, but then it hasn't been deciphered till this date. So that is proto-history example. Then what about the history? So history is the part where not only the written records are there and they are very well deciphered. Then so they are very well deciphered, and in fact what we read majorly is the history. Then, so what we read majorly after Indus Valley civilization, everything that we read is history. Then, so when written record, even the oral records are also there from the history part of India. So later on, we'll understand that these traditions, which are called as Shruti tradition. अभी उस पर discussion नहीं कर रहे हैं. So now, as you know that ancient and medieval, it's a big topic, okay? And to be summarized in few number of the classes, so you need to be well versed with the chronology. Then, and first thing that we'll do, that we'll go ahead with the chronology. So I'll be creating the entire stuff over here, and you can also note down at the same point of time. But then before going ahead with the chronology, I would like to talk about this prehistory part. So when it comes to prehistory part, Stone Age. So Stone Age would be the beginning, okay? And moreover, in India, when the Stone Age started, so Stone Age started somewhere around that with the evolution of the human beings, we can talk about the Stone Age. But basically, the very first discussion is the evolution of the human being itself. So tell me that in which particular part you must have read. I think that these all batches must be well versed with the geography. So in geography, you must have read about the Köppen classification of the time periods. Then, so tell me that if you have any idea that when did the human beings emerge on the planet Earth? How many years back? In the middle of the Pleistocene epoch. Okay? So in the middle of the Pleistocene epoch, that human beings appeared on the planet Earth. It must not seem a jargon to you because it is a geographical word, and the time period which has been mentioned by the Köppen. Then, so in the middle of the Pleistocene epoch, the human beings emergence has happened. As you know that human beings emergence, that very first living being must have been some one-celled animal, and that too it must have emerged in the water body. So what you call today amoeba. So some have you heard about amoeba? Okay? So amoeba, euglena, these are all where the single cellular organism which must have emerged in the water body. And from the single cell, multiple cell organism. And then after the water-based animals or flora or fauna, so amphibians must have emerged who can live in the water and then also on the land, and then the terrestrial animals emergence happen. When in the terrestrial animals, so the development of the human being has happened from the primates. Then, so primates, you understand that who are called as, so very first thing, ape. Ape is the monkeys, they are category of the ape. Then primates. So have you all know chimpanzees are the chimpanzees, as you know. So chimpanzees, orangutans, so they are the category of the primates, and from primates the human being's emergence has happened. So when the human being emergence is happening with the primates, so what change is happening actually? So basically bipedalism is the main criteria for the development of the human being. Why? What is bipedalism? Walking from the two legs. Okay? So generally these apes and primates, they were walking on four legs. Then So they walk on four legs. Even till this date, if you see a monkey walking, so it walks on a four leg. Then, so it majorly uses all the four pedals. Now, bipedalism is an important phenomenon. And for bipedalism to happen, what was the change which was there in the body? So that change which was necessitated in the body was the erection of the spinal cord. Then, so spinal cord, notochord. Then, so notochord, creation of the notochord, and that's why we call them as the chordates. But in the chordates, the one who is walking straight, so it becomes erectus. So one of the initial human species on the planet Earth is Homo erectus. Then, meaning that the species of the human being which is walking straight. Then, so Homo erectus. Then after many other genus of the species of the human beings arise, which includes the Neanderthal man, Peking man, Beijing man. There are different names, Ramapithecus, then in India, Narmada men. So different varieties of the human beings emerged, and they all were ascribed some sort of Australopithecus. So they all were ascribed some sort of scientific name. And scientific name on what basis? Genus and species. Have you heard about it? The binomial nomenclature given by Carolus Linnaeus. So genus, first part, that is Homo, and sapiens is the second part, that is species. So there were many such species of the human beings. Out of that species of the human being, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, then and Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, Australopithecus, only one survived, and that was the sapiens. Then, so what is the reason behind that? Why Homo sapiens survived and then they dominate the world? They dominate this particular environment. Any idea that how they were able to survive? Brain capacity. Okay? So brain capacity is mainly related to the Cro-Magnon, that they had a very good brain capacity. But it does not mean that the correlation would be like that if the size of a human being, suppose that somebody is in this class whose height is 6.3, and then he is well built, does not mean that he will be very intelligent. Is it like so? Then, so increasing the brain capacity does not mean that he will be too intelligent. Then, so now let's remove it. The reason is gossip. Yep. So Homo sapiens were a gossiping people. They loved gossip, and that's how they survived. So I'm using an informal word, gossip, but you may be surprised with it. The most important attribute of the human being that they are able to communicate. Then, without the communication, no capacity increases, and then those inactive parts of your brain, they don't get activated. And so with the communication, one trait which develops between the human beings, that is the cooperation and coordination. If you are in some sort of need, if you are in some sort of problem, if you want something which is not in your reach, so then you have an idea of communication. So basically, because of the communication, they started to communicate with each other, cooperate with each other, and that's how they started to become a unit. So one of the most important trait of the survival was living in the units, creating the communities, then being together. Then that is the most important attribute. And this all happened because of the communication. So they were communicative, and in general word, they used to talk a lot. Then, but the other human beings, they were less talkative. So that is the most important phenomenon which has happened. So now human beings survived, and which human being? Homo sapiens. Then when it comes to reading about the history of the early human beings, so we reconstruct their history on the basis of the stone tools used by them and artifacts used by them, since in the prehistory we don't have any written record. So only on the basis of the stone tool and the artifacts. And what is artifacts? Their art and their art pieces. Moreover, even the paintings are also the source of the information about them. Then, so this is how we are going to start. And moreover, let's come back to the Stone Age in India. So Stone Age from the perspective of the world history, then from the perspective of the world history, it is little older, but in India, Stone Age started 5 lakh years back. Okay? 5 lakh BC back. Then, and the very first part of the Stone Age is called as Paleolithic. Then the second part we call Mesolithic, and the third is called as Neolithic. Then, so Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. Moreover, when we talk about the Paleolithic, so Paleolithic is further subdivided into three phases. So these phases are called as lower Paleolithic, middle Paleolithic, and upper Paleolithic. Then, so these would be there. So एक काम करो, first you write the introduction which I have mentioned, and then I go into the entire classification. Okay? So just write a little bit, then mention. So human beings appeared on planet Earth. Human beings appeared on planet Earth in the middle of in the middle of Pleistocene epoch. You can see spelling. So middle of Pleistocene epoch. Then mention the maximum development or evolution of the human beings happened in Holocene period. And Holocene you can mention recent. And here the word recent does not mean kal, parso. Okay? Recent means that last how many years? For 50,000 years. Last 50,000 years. Okay? So then happened in the Holocene period. Then mention it is difficult to know everything about the early human beings. Then since in those times literary aspect was not developed. Then mention literary aspect would not develop, full stop. The early human history is mainly reconstructed. On the basis of stone tools used by them, stone tools and artifacts, दोनों लिखो. So stone tools and artifacts used by them. Stone tools and artifacts used by them. Then mention. In India, the main source of information about early human beings is the stone tools and their rock cut painting. Stone tools and their rock cut painting. We'll mention what is this. Then after this rock cut painting part, just write one more thing. So mention the Stone Age in Indian context. Is divided into three phases. That is Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. So Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. So now stop. And now we are going with the chronology. So after the introduction, so you will also be writing at the same point of time. So first we go ahead with the ancient part of the chronology. And in ancient, as we mentioned, the very first thing is the Stone Age. So Stone Age, as we said, divided into three phases. The very first is Paleolithic. And as far as the Paleolithic is concerned, Paleolithic is further subdivided into Lower Paleolithic, Middle Paleolithic, and the last one, Upper Paleolithic. So as far as their ages are concerned, so Lower Paleolithic, 5 lakh BCE. Should I write 5 lakh BCE to 50,000? 50K I'm writing, okay? I hope you will understand. 50K BCE. Then 50 to just 1 minute. There is a change over here. 50K to 40K BCE. There is dates में थोड़ा सा change है. Just this is 1 lakh actually. I have wrongly written. So 1 lakh and this one is still 40K. So 1 lakh BCE and this is 50K to 1 lakh to 50K. 1 lakh to 50K BCE and this one 50 to 10,000 BCE. Fine. Nahin, theek hai, that's fine. Then let's come to the next one, which is Mesolithic. So Mesolithic comes around 10,000 to 6,000 BCE. And then the Neolithic is 6,000 to 3,000 BCE. We'll be writing separately it also, but then abhi itna likho. Then after 3,000, so proto-history, let's come to the proto-history part. And in proto-history, so Indus Valley civilization. Indus Valley civilization. (2600 to 1800 BCE). So what happened? That this is phase ke baad after Neolithic. So basically the 400 years which is following after Neolithic, we call it the pre-Hadappa phase. So if you want, you can write that pre-Hadappan phase for 3000 to 2600 BCE. Okay? So pre-Hadappan phase, and moreover there is one more thing which is called as Chalcolithic, but I'm not writing in this part right now. We'll tell you separately that what is that particular section. Then after proto-history, so let's come to the history part. So as far as the Chalcolithic is concerned, Chalcolithic बस थोड़ा सा समझ लो. The Chalcolithic phase is the phase which was parallel to the Indus Valley also. Okay? It was parallel to the Indus Valley also, it was parallel to the Vedic period also, and it continued for a very longer period of time. So, what is Chalcolithic? Basically, the age in which in certain parts of India, copper and stone were used simultaneously. Okay? So, I'm writing here separately Chalcolithic age, but that is to be dealt separately. So it is actually starting from 3000 BCE and go till 1100 BCE. So 1100 BCE. So till this point of time, Chalcolithic culture was prevalent. But then the the real beginning of the history part starts with the advent of the Aryans. Okay? So advent of the Aryans. So from here onwards, the topics would be a little bit more formalized. Advent of Aryans. So after the decline and disintegration of the Indus Valley civilization, that happened till 1800, and from Central Asia there were few people who started to arrive in India, and not few people, bunch of the tribes, okay, who were arriving from the Central Asia. They are called as Aryans. So we'll see the basis that why they are called as Aryans, but not now. So advent of Aryans happened around 1500 BCE, and moreover it led to the beginning of the Vedic age in India. So Vedic age. And why we call this age Vedic age? Because the composition of the four Vedas have happened in the Vedic age. So Vedic age is further subdivided into two phases, and this subdivision is basically early Vedic period and later Vedic period. Later Vedic period. So early Vedic period and later Vedic period. As far as early Vedic is concerned, 1500 to 1000 BCE. And the later Vedic from 1000 to 500. 1000 to 500 BCE. Done? Then after this particular part, so later Vedic age, this 500 BC that we are mentioning, like, that 500 to 600, the 6th century BCE. So in the 6th century BCE, what has happened? That the emergence of the 16 Mahajanpad, okay? And what is Mahajanpad? Big territorial states. So 16 Mahajanpads have happened. Then, so from here onwards, we generally move towards the development in the 6th century BC. One of the development is Mahajanpad. The second development is the rise of the religious reform movements in the form of Buddhism, Jainism, and Ajivika. Then, so there are these two incidents. So I'm writing 6th century BC as a title. Then, and in this 6th century BCE, very first thing, rise of 16 Mahajanpad. Mahajanpad. And then this one, number 2. So religious reform movements. Reform movements leading to creation of foundation of Buddhism, Jainism, and so as Ajivika. Buddhism, Jainism, and Ajivika. That, so religious reform movement. Now, after this part, when it comes to the rise of the 16 Mahajanpads, so in the 16 Mahajanpad, the most important and the most powerful in the beginning, okay, was not Magad actually. So the most powerful in the beginning was Kasi and Kosala. But then later on, what has happened, that Magad has emerged the most powerful. And it is the Magad history that we read in the 16 Mahajanpad, because it is Magad which annexed all the Mahajanpads then over the period. So from here onwards, we read the history of Magad Mahajanpad. Magad Mahajanpad. We'll talk about the other Mahajanpads also later on in the class itself. But then in Magad Mahajanpad, the ruling dynasties of this time. So all the ruling dynasty. So the very first ruling dynasty in the Magad, Haryanka. So Haryanka dynasty, 554 to 412. Then this is all in BC. Then after Haryanka were replaced by Sashunag. So Sashunag dynasty, 412 to 344. Sashunag was replaced by Nandas. So they were replaced by Nandas. And Nandas were from 344 for a very shorter duration, but then very tumultuous period. Nandas. And Nandas are toppled by Mauryas. Then Mauryas. So Maurya dynasty and Mauryas ruled for a longer period of time. So from 321 to 185 BCE. So now there is a one change over here. In 185 BCE, the last ruler of the Maurya, Brihadrat, he was killed by his own minister, Pushyamitra Sung. And from here onwards, the complete decline of the Maurya kingdom, not only the Maurya dynasty has started, but also the fragmentation of the Magad has also started. Okay? So basically, now ek baat samajhna, that from 321 to 185, India was under, the entire Indian subcontinent was under the rule of the Mauryas, then particularly at the time of Ashoka. In fact, at the time of the Ashoka, even the Afghanistan was also, some parts of the Afghanistan was also the part of India then. And moreover, the influence was there in the northeast and in the far south, and moreover also very closer to Iran then. So he was highly influential. He controlled whatever be the area of today's India. More than 120% of the today's area of India was covered by Ashoka then. So there was a central rule in India, but then Ashoka's death, and then after slow decline because of the unworthy rulers, and finally the assassination of the Brihadrat has led to the fragmentation of Magad, which is giving basically scope for the invaders from the different parts of the world to come to India and create their own regime. So after this period, since there was no central ruler in India, we call the age as the post-Maurya age. Then, so mention a title, post-Maurya age. So post-Maurya age. Now, so when it comes to post-Maurya age, so in this particular age, there were two types of the dynasties which were established in India, and one is the indigenous one. Okay? So indigenous dynasty, indigenous, and another is the foreigners. Okay? So invaders, or basically we are writing the foreigners. So their rule in indigenous, the very first one, as we mentioned, is Sunga. So Sunga dynasty. So Sunga dynasty ruled in Magad from 185 till 75 BCE. So similarly, just like that, Pushyamitra Sung has killed his own ruler, and then he has become the ruler. Similarly, one of the minister of the Sunga, okay, his name was Vasudev Kanwa. So he also did the same thing to them, and then he established Kanwa dynasty in Magad. So Kanwa dynasty, and Kanwa dynasty survived for near about 75 years only. Okay? And in the very beginning of the first century AD, 75 to 80 years they were there. Basically from 75 to Here, exact date is not mentioned about their demise because it is the Satvahans whose regime will start. And in Satvahan, so Satvahans are replacing Kandvas in 1st century AD. 1st century AD. Then, so they are replacing Kandvas in 1st century AD, and as far as the Satvahan rule is concerned, so it will continue till 300 AD. So their rule will continue till 300 AD. Then let's come to the next one, foreigners. So in the foreigners, the first foreign dynasty or invading dynasty which actually invaded the northwestern part of India was, any idea? Indo-Greeks were the first to invade India. So Indo-Greeks, and invasion of the Indo-Greeks has started in 190 BCE. Okay? Basically, when the Mauryas were still there, okay, by that time only the invasion has started because they were weak, and then comes the Scythians. So Scythians, what we call them in India? Sakas. So there were many branches of the Sakas, and their arrival is from 90 BCE. Then after Scythians, for a smaller duration, Parthians are there. Parthians, and Parthians were there from the 25 AD. So I'm writing the old terminology, but later on will change. So 25 AD to 45 AD was there, stay in India. And then comes after the Parthians, Kushan. Okay? So Kushan's arrival in India is from 65 AD. Kushan dynasty. Kanishk was the most important ruler of this dynasty. So 65 AD. Then, and these all, when we talk about these all, they are existing till 300. Then, when, so they are existing till 300 when particularly Gupta's rise is happening. Okay? So this is what is about the post-Maurya age. Till this point of time, we have not discussed what was there in the southern part of India. So now just understand. Okay? I'm going back to this part, then give me 1 minute. So when Maurya's age, what you have written, Maurya dynasty, then, so as we said that at the time of the Asoka, near about that entire area of India was under his control, and beyond India also there were areas which were under control. But then there is a phase in the South India history which is called as Sangam age. Then there is always an issue related to the date of the Sangam age. The old books which are there, they do mention that the Sangam age existed from the 1st century BCE to 600 AD. But then, in the light of the new information, new excavation, and the contest by the Tamilian historians, then, so now it is said that Sangam age existed from 300 BCE and it is there till the 600 AD. Then, so you can write separately after it. I'm just that they are contemporary of the Mauryas, but then write it separately after here. ठीक है? So इसके नीचे चाहो तो लिख सकते हो. So Sangam age in South India. Sangam age in South India, because it is even crossing the post-Maurya age. So that's why we are writing here. So there were 3 dynasties, and these 3 dynasties, early Chola, then Chera, and Pandyas. So early Chola, Chera, and Pandyas, and their timeline we are writing roughly as 300 BCE to 600 AD. So Now, done? Done? Now, after it, so generally that this part, we are ending by 300, basically post-Maurya age. So after the end of these all dynasties, then Satvahan and then also the dilution in the rule of the foreigners. It has happened because of the rise of once again a central dynasty in this northern part of India, and that was the Guptas. So originally, the initial founder of the Gupta was Sri Gupta, was around 250 AD, but then the real founder, the person who actually consolidated the Gupta rule by expanding it was Chandragupta first. So 319 AD. So mention Gupta age. Gupta age. And Gupta age is from 319 AD to 550 AD. So in this particular part, the most important discussion is related to the 5 important rulers. So very first ruler that we mention in our classes is Chandragupta first. Chandragupta first. Timeline we'll write later. Okay? So Chandragupta first, then he was followed by Samudragupta. Samudragupta. After Samudragupta, Chandragupta second. Chandragupta second, and then comes Kumaragupta, and the last one is the Skandagupta. Skandagupta. Then, so these 5 rulers we will be talking about, and then there are other topics also that we'll be discussing. So Gupta age ended by 550. So basically, Skandagupta death happened in 467, and after the 467, the rulers who followed were weak. They were not like these 5 rulers, and then after, it further gave chance to the invaders from the that Middle Eastern part of the world to arrive in India, and they completely decimated the Gupta's age. So these invaders were Hunas. Okay, so Huna's invasion. So I'm just mentioning over here that इसके नीचे लिख लो invasion of Hunas. Invasion of Huna Hunas. And by 600, Gupta dynasty completely declined. Okay? So Gupta dynasty completely declined, and then there was a vacuum in the north and central India. So this vacuum in the north and central India, this is to be filled, and that was filled by the Pushyabhuti dynasty of the Thaneshwar in Haryana. Okay? So 6th century BC, or basically 600 onwards. Not BC, AD. So 600 onwards, just give me a minute. So 600 AD onwards, what is the development? So very first one. In northern part, establishment of Pushyabhuti dynasty. And the most important ruler of Pushyabhuti dynasty was Harshvardhan. Then, so Harshvardhan, and we'll write, so Harshvardhan's timeline was from 602 to 647 AD. Then, so after the death of Harshvardhan, Pushyabhuti's decline also started. Then, meanwhile, development, co-development we need to see. So understand that on one hand, Pushyabhuti is there in the northern India. On the other hand, I am going back to this part, Sangam age. ठीक है, ध्यान से समझना इस बात को. So in Sangam age, this early Chola who are there, they will cease to exist. They will continue, but not as a strong ruler after 600. They will be rulers, but they will not be as strong as the Sangam age. and early Cholas complete decline will happen. So how it is happening? So there were few feudatories in the court of the early Cholas, and then they have gone to create their own kingdoms. So at the place of the early Chola, in the age of Harshvardhan, then South India. So I'm writing South India over here, and contemporary of the Pushyabhuti was Chalukya and Pallavas. Chalukya and Pallavas. So Chalukya's emergence has happened in 500, around 510 AD, their emergence, and Pallavas around 600 AD. So they became the main dominating people in the southern India, and they started ruling the erstwhile area of the Cholas. So this is development. Now, as we mentioned, by 647, death of Harshvardhan started, and after the death of Harshvardhan, there is a further decline and moreover vacuum getting created in the North India once again. As far as the Harshvardhan's controlled area is concerned, Harshvardhan controlled everything in India above Narmada river. Okay? So he controlled the entire northern part, western part, and so as the eastern part. So now, after his death, in his controlled areas, three dynasties are emerging. Then, and these three dynasties are, so who are they? Any idea? Pratihar Gurjar. Pratihar Gurjar. And please don't confuse it with the Gujjar. Then it is not, which is a caste in Haryana, so as in Himachal also, so and mainly in the Rajasthan also. So Western UP also. So that's a different caste. Here it is a Gurjar, then, which is related to the Garjana. Garjana, you understand? Then, so basically the voice of the roaring of the lion. Then, so now Pratihar Gurjar. Then the second dynasty. So Pratihar Gurjar, their emergence was in the western part of the country. So their area, controlled area, was the northwest. Then comes the next dynasty is the Pal dynasty. Pal dynasty. And Pal dynasty were in which area? Eastern part of the country. So they are in eastern part of country. Eastern India, Bihar, Bengal, Odisha, these all part. And then, which one? Rashtrakutas. Okay? So Rashtrakutas are there in Maharashtra, but then they will be expanding to the Karnataka. So they are starting their regime from the Maharashtra. They will be expanding to Karnataka, and so as some parts of UP also. Okay? Rajasthan, MP, UP also. So they are basically central India. For the time being, we are writing central India. Now, as far as the timeline is concerned, then so all of them emerged by 750 AD. So all of them are emerging by 750 AD. एक दो ईयर का डिफरेंस है 751, 757, but we are writing the rough estimate, right? Now understand. So after it, this is the part of the northern India. We are at the rear end of the ancient history. अब इसके बाद then the next development is that Pallavas who are there in the southern India. Now there is a complete decline of the Pallavas and slow decline of the Chalukyas. So complete decline of Pallavas, slow decline of Chalukyas, and the Pandya and Cheras who are also existing in some form after 600. So their decline is also happening, and it is paving the way to the last dynasty that we take into the consideration in the ancient, that is the mainline Chola dynasty. Mainline Chola dynasty. They are also called as Imperial Chola. Imperial Chola, and emergence in and around 900 AD, and they will continue till 1200 AD. That's it. So this timeline we are keeping in the ancient. Done? Why timeline is very necessary in this particular part? Because it is very vast. And if you have even that, if you revise this particular timeline 3 4 times, so much more difficulty would be relieved. Then so do revise it, and then let's come to the medieval India. So medieval India timeline is very straightforward. Then there is no such complication like the ancient India. Now just understand, before I'm moving into the medieval India timeline, एक बार फिर से सुन लो that how we have started, and you can look into your writing part also. So we started with the classification from the time of the Stone Age, Paleolithic, okay, and Paleolithic is further divided into lower Paleolithic, middle Paleolithic, and upper Paleolithic. Okay? So these all in ages are winding up by 10,000 BC. And moreover, after 10,000 BC, the Mesolithic age starts, and then starts the Neolithic age. So this is what is about the prehistory in India. Proto-history is the Indus Valley civilization. So the preparation of the Indus Valley civilization pre-Harappan phase has started from 2600, in between 2600 to 3000 BCE. And finally, it has paved the way for the rise of the Indus Valley civilization. Okay? So Indus Valley civilization emerged in 2600 firmly, and then 1900 it was completely good, but then after it decline has started, and decline was complete by 1800 BCE. Then so after the decline, the only thing which was reflected in India in those times were the Chalcolithic culture. From where the Chalcolithic culture starting, a time span of Chalcolithic culture is a little big, which is starting from the Neolithic age itself, 3000, and then it is continuing even till the Vedic age by 1100. So Chalcolithic we'll see after that particular topic, and then the next part is the history part. So history part, the historical writings of India can be traced from the 1500 BCE. And 1500 BCE, the most important event was the advent of Aryans. So Aryans are the many different tribes who are coming from the Central Asia, and slowly, because of their advanced technology, they were able to establish their rule and their control in many parts of India. So due to the developments in the Vedic age, it has been divided into two phases, early Vedic and later Vedic. Then, so early Vedic from 1500 to 1000 approximately, and from 1000 to 500 is the later Vedic age. Moreover, 6th century BC, which is 500 to 600 BC, this age is known for many developments in India, and it was a phase of the transition. So phase of the transition, the very first thing is emergence of the 16 Mahajanpad. What is Mahajanpad? The big territorial states which were created by 600. Then after this part, the next development was the religious reform movement, and which has given rise to the Buddhism, Jainism, and Ajivika. Then the most important Mahajanpad was Magad. Okay? Why so? Because Magad annexed over the period all the 16 Mahajanpads. Then, so history of the Magad is the main content of the ancient. So Magad Mahajanpad, the first ruling dynasty, as we mentioned over here, Haryanka. But there are some more episodes related to Magad and that are also associated with the Mahabharata. So we'll talk about that also. Then, so Haryanka was the first dynasty. Haryanka was followed by Sashanag, okay? And Sashanag के बाद Nandas, and Nandas के बाद then Maurya. So it is the Maurya regime which is the most famous then, and which was the strongest. So they controlled the entire Indian subcontinent. Indian subcontinent includes obviously India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, then, but so has the Singhal Desh also, and Singhal Desh, parts of Sri Lanka, and then parts of the Afghanistan also, and parts of the Iran also. They were under the control of the Ashoka. Then, now after this, okay, decline of the Mauryas. How it happened? So Ashoka's death, slow decline is starting, and then there are many frictions in the court. Finally, the minister Pushyamitra Sung kills the last Maurya emperor Brihadrath, and then after the disintegration of the Magad also starts. So, though the Pushyamitra Sunga founded Shunga dynasty in the Magad, but the area of the Magad will be constricting. And there would be two type of the rulers in the post-Maurya age. One who are indigenous, meaning Indian origin rulers, and then the invaders will be coming to India and they will be making India as their home. So, who are they? So first of all, in the indigenous Sunga were followed by Kanavas, and Kanavas were finally followed by the dynasty which emerged in the Deccan, that was Satavahanas. Then, so they are controlling their area. And on the other hand, in the invaders, first to arrive in India were Indo-Greeks, then followed by Scythians or Sakas. But Sakas arrived in many branches. So as then Parthians came, and after the Parthians, even Kushanas also arrived in the two branches. Then, so those branches we will mention when we are reading that particular topic. So by 300 AD, these all dynasties, their rule is over. On the other hand, when these are the dynasties mainly in the central Deccan and the northern part of India, in South India, right from the time of the Mauryas, three dynasties emerged, and these three dynasties were Chola, Chera, and Pandyas. So these dynasties, their age is often referred as Sangam age. The reason we will discuss in culture part. Okay? Why so? Because the Sangam literature was written at this point of time. So that's why we refer them as a Sangam age. Then, so Sangam age started from 300 to 600 AD. And in this, these dynasties were good. But by 600 AD, one of the dynasty, Cholas, are declining. Then, in the southern India. Now let's get back to the North India. In North India, from 300 AD onwards, Guptas are, after the Mauryas, the most powerful people in India were the Guptas. Then their emergence happened around 250, but they are coming to the prominence in 319 when Chandragupta first becomes the ruler. Then, and it's Chandragupta's invention after which the Gupta empire has expanded. The most powerful ruler was Samudragupta. Then, and under the Samudragupta, the territory of the Guptas is reaching their climax, meaning that highest zenith stage. Then after Chandragupta II, followed by Chandragupta II, Kumaragupta and Skandagupta. After the death of the Skandagupta, the weak successors of the Gupta were not able to contest the invaders from the Middle Eastern part of the world, Hunas. Then, and that's how it has led to the decimation of the Gupta rule by 550. Ek bar fir se, once again, there is a vacuum in the northern central India. Then, and this vacuum is filled by one dynasty which emerged in Haryana, Thaneshwar. Then, and the name of the dynasty was Pushyabhuti. So Pushyabhuti most important ruler was Harshvardhan. Harshvardhan regime continued till 647. In fact, in this particular part, when we are going to talk about the Pallavas and Chalukya, so the confrontation of the Harshvardhan and Chalukya was also a very famous episode. Then Chalukya ruler Pulakesin II. So now, on one hand, that Harshvardhan is in northern India. In southern India, two dynasties are important, Pallavas and Chalukyas. Then, so Pallavas and Chalukya. So now, after the death of Harshvardhan, once again there is a vacuum, and that vacuum is filled by three dynasties which are emerging in the north, central, and eastern part. And these are Pratihar Gurjar in the northwest, then Pal dynasty in the Bengal, Bihar, Odisha part, and then in the central India, Rashtrakutas. Then, on the other hand, Pallavas are completely declining by 900. In fact, one of their courtiers, their darbaris, who were mainline Cholas, then, so his name was Vijayalaya Chola. He has toppled the Pallavas and then he has come to power. So mainline Chola dynasty was exactly established in 890 AD. And then after, the Chola dynasty was the most powerful dynasty. Which Chola? Imperial Chola dynasty was the most powerful dynasty which ruled in the southern part of India. In fact, why we call them imperial, one thought must be given to it. Perhaps they were the first rulers from India who started to invade areas outside India also, particularly in the Malay Peninsula. So, for example, that if you look at the Malaysia, then and moreover this Malaysia particularly, okay, in Malaysia there is a large chunk of the Indian expatriates who are living over there. Then so the tradition it all started from the ancient time only. In fact, huge number of the Tamil people are there in the Malaysia. Then so it's the old time from the Vijayalaya Chola. That's how it all started. So now, so that is the last dynasty of the ancient period which existed till 1200. Now let's look at the developments which are leading to the medieval India. So the developments I'm saying, okay, medieval India abhi nahi likh rahe hain. What are the developments? Invasions, okay? Which invasions? So invasions which wanted to spread Islam. And the very first Islamic invasion in India was in 712 AD. By whom? Mir Qasim, okay? So that Mir Qasim, not Mir Qasim, sorry. Why Mir Qasim I'm saying? Muhammad Qasim, ठीक है? So Muhammad Qasim, अभी modern चल रहा है मेरे दिमाग में. So Muhammad Qasim was the one, ठीक है, who has invaded in 712. His regime did not continue for a longer period of time, but that marked the beginning of the Islam, in advent of Islam, particularly in the Sindh part of India. Okay? Then after, the second invasion was basically most ferocious, and it all started in 985. That was Mahmud of Ghazni. Okay? So Mahmud of Ghazni, 985 to 1025, there were 17 invasions of the Mahmud of Ghazni. Then, so we'll discuss about it. And the last which led to the establishment of the Delhi Sultanate rule was Muhammad Ghuri's invasion. Okay? So Muhammad Ghuri's invasion started in 1171. And then after, in 1192, he was defeated by Prithviraj Chauhan, but then he defeated Prithviraj Chauhan in 1192. So 91 he was defeated, and 92 he defeated Prithviraj Chauhan. This is the most important landmark event in the history of India, which led to the establishment of the informal Turkish rule in India. And finally, in 1206, the slave of the Muhammad Ghuri, Kutubuddin Aibak, he founded Delhi Sultanate. Then, so invasion part I'm not writing in the timeline. Okay? We'll see it separately. Here you write the medieval India timeline. So mention medieval India. So medieval India is not that complicated. It is very straightforward. Then so we'll divide it into two parts. That is Delhi Sultanate and the Mughals. So Delhi Sultanate, foundation in 1206 and continuation till 1526. So the very first dynasty in the Delhi Sultanate is the slave dynasty. Slave dynasty. And timeline 1206 to 1290. Then slave were followed by Khilji. So Khilji and Khilji dynasty, 1290 to 1320. Then Tughlaq. 1320 to 1414. Tughlaqs followed by Sayyid. Short-lived dynasty from 1414 to 1451. And then the last one is the Lodi dynasty. So 1451 to 1526. So Delhi Sultanate. So the next one, Mughal. Mughal period. But there is an interruption in the Mughal period also. Okay? So we'll talk about that interruption also. So generally it is 1526 to 1540. 1540 And then second beginning of the Mughals in India, 1555 to 1707. So what is in between? Sesa Suri's rule. Okay? But let's talk about the Mughal ruler first, and then separately we'll write Sesa Suri. So mention Zahiruddin Babar, 1526 to 30. Then Humayun, 1530 to 40, and 1555 to 56. Then after Humayun, next one is Akbar. So Akbar's regime, 1556 to 1605. After Akbar, Jahangir. 1605 to 1627. Shah Jahan. So the timeline is not over here. It's just about 27 to 58. And the last one is Alamgir Aurangzeb. So Aurangzeb, 1658 to 1707. But since in the beginning we mentioned Vijayanagar kingdom, there are many other kingdoms. Where are they? In this timeline. So mention. Abhi pehle isla likh lo, then we'll go into that part of the other kingdoms. So here, this duration, I'm mentioning Sur Empire from 1540 to 55. And then done. I'll come back to this part, but यहाँ पे भी हमें थोड़े बहुत लिखने हैं, ठीक है? So Khilji's period, ठीक है? So this is the time where we need to mention Kakatiya dynasty. Kakatiya dynasty. So 1100 to 1324. 1324 लिखना उसमें. 1324. And then comes the Tughlaq period. So in Tughlaq period, there are two dynasties which are emerging, and these are Vijayanagar kingdom and Bahmani. Vijayanagar kingdom and Bahmani kingdom. So Vijayanagar 1336 is the foundation till 1640, and Bahmani 1347 is the foundation. And actually Bahmani kingdom completely, it was broken by 1509 itself, when Krishnadev Rai was the ruler. Thereafter 5 houses of the Bahmani would be there. Then, so these are the regional kingdoms that also we are going to study. So mainly Tughlaq period has given rise to these two kingdoms, and then at the time of the Khiljis, Kakatiyas were the ruler in the Warangal. Then 1509. That's the timeline when Krishnadev Rai's rule starting, 1509 to 1529. In this period, Bahmani kingdom got broke up into 5 houses, and these 5 houses will continue even till the modern age. Then, so that's what is all about the timeline of the ancient and medieval. Okay? So a little bit of little bit of interface with the timeline has happened. I would not say that कि एक ही बार में समझ भी आ जाएगा or then you will be able to remember. But then some clarity would be there from here onwards. Then, so I hope you got it. Then, so पूरा तो समझना मुश्किल है, but 60-70 भी हो जाए तो enough. ठीक है? I'm saying in the words of Seema Taparia. You don't know? चलो तो नहीं बता क्या दीजिए. She is that matchmaker. Which matchmaker? शादी करवाने वाली. So then when you go to her, so she will be asking questions to you. She is a very famous person and she will be asking questions to you that ki, so tell what you want. So if you say that ki कुछ नहीं बस लड़की होनी चाहिए, so she will say that ki पूरा तो मिलना मुश्किल है, 60-70 भी हो जाए तो चलेगा. So now let's come to this part. So we are done with this entire chronology part. We'll start with the Stone Age. ठीक है? Mention करो. Stone Age. So पानी पी लेने दो मुझे. So let's start with the Stone Age in India. And they go. So in the Stone Age, what we are going to not audible at all. लिखना है अभी. चलो, I'll give you 2 minutes. You guys 2 minutes. Those who want to complete, you can mention. अभी ठीक है? Fine? Now fine? So Sameer has asked that what about Ichhawaku? बेटा वो अपने इच्छा से आए और चले भी गए. इसलिए हमने लिखा नहीं बीच में. Art and culture में you'll get to know about them. So obviously when you're doing ancient medieval, तो ancient medieval ये एक conformity होती है as per our planning that if you're doing ancient medieval with me, so art and culture would also be done by me. नहीं sir. So let's come to the next part. Now I hope you are done with it. So Stone Age. So in Stone Age, we start with the Paleolithic period. इसमें जानना क्या है हमें, ठीक है? So particularly we only talk about the tools which were used in these times then, and the tools which were used, and on the basis of the tool we predict something. And in the upper Paleolithic age, not in the lower and the middle, paintings were there, but in upper Paleolithic age we find one painting then. So we'll talk about that painting in upper Paleolithic, and then Mesolithic phase. Not only their tool was very important, but also their painting, which is called as Mesolithic painting. Then, so as far as the Paleolithic age, what does the Paleo suggest? The oldest age, okay? And Lithic is the stone, okay? So the oldest stone age is the Paleolithic. Now, so Paleolithic as a title you write, और उसमें सीधे you come to the lower Paleolithic period. So mention number 1, lower Paleolithic period. So now listen, that when it comes to lower Paleolithic period, so in this period, as we said, that stone tools we need to mention. The characteristic tools of this time, they were irregular in shape. Or which tools? Stone tools. So irregular in shape, big in size. Then, so big in size. Moreover, these characteristic tools were known as hand axes, cleavers and choppers. So cleavers and choppers. So the characteristic tool of this time are this: hand axes, cleavers and choppers. They were irregular and big in size. Moreover, as far as that the sites in India were concerned, that where we found the site, so one of the very important site which is there in almost, they starting from the lower Paleolithic and going till the Mesolithic, that area is the Bhimbetka. Then, so Bhimbetka is one area. Then Narmada Valley is also one area where majority of these tools have been found. So just mention a little bit then. The stone tools of this period, the stone tools of this period were irregular in shape and big in size. Irregular in shape and big in size. Full stop. The characteristic tools were hand axes, cleavers and choppers. Hand axes, cleavers and choppers. Then mention further. Majority of these tools were found. Majority of these tools were found in the area of Narmada Valley and Bhimbetka. Then, so can I ask you one question? That all over the world, different particular remains of the skeletons of the human beings were discovered or excavated. So the first human being which was excavated was named Lucy. Then, what about India? That where and who found the first human skeleton of this age is Arun Sunakia, okay? And the Narmada Valley. So the place was Hathnora. Then, so it is said as that Hathnora man, Narmada man, okay, and found by the Arun Sunakia. Moreover, in the recent past, or basically, पिछले 20 साल पहले, ठीक है, what has happened that earlier it was said that it was the fossil of a man, but now it is completely clear that it was a fossil of a woman. That, so कहीं note करके लिख लो, इसी में note करके लिख लो, just write a note. The first human fossil from India, the first human fossil of Paleolithic age, ऐसे लिखो, the first human fossil of Paleolithic age in India, was found from Narmada Valley. By Arun Sunakia. Then Arun Sunakia, then mention it was named Hathnora man in the beginning, and but later it came to be known as Narmada man. And brackets में लिख लो, originally it's a fossil of a female. Originally it's a fossil of female. Then, so now this much only we need to know about these phases, and let's come to the second phase, Middle Paleolithic phase. So just give me 1 minute. Middle Paleolithic phase. Mention Middle Paleolithic phase. So basically what we are observing in these all phases, it's the change in the tool technology. And what is there in this time? So earlier the tools were irregular in shape. Now there is a shape of the tool that is rectangular. Then so majority of the tools were rectangular and their sizes are becoming little smaller than the previous age. Okay? So small tool as compared to previous phase, as compared to previous phase. And moreover, what are these tools? So these tools are blades, borers and burins. So characteristic tools were blades, borers and burins. Then, so now understand, before writing this part, that rectangular tools were there in the first phase, irregular shape, but now rectangular. And how these rectangular tools were created? So they were created with the method of flaking. Okay? So what is flaking? That certain objects, okay? Suppose that if this is a big thing, so certain objects are inserted inside it, that sharp tools, small chote wale stone, and then they are pressed from the top. So flakes are created, and generally flakes, what happens, that suppose कि इसका rectangular part छोटा सा कट के बाहर आ जाए, ठीक है? So that would be the flake. So the tools were made from the flake technology, ठीक है? So flakes were created. And the last phase that we'll be discussing will be the Upper Paleolithic, and in Upper Paleolithic would be the flint. So here flakes and there flint. So mention, you write that, start with this. In this phase, rectangular shaped tools were created. In this phase, rectangular shaped tools were created. Tools were created with flake method. Flake method. Flake method. Then you write, these tools were thinner and smaller than the previous phase tool. Thinner and smaller than previous phase tool. Then the characteristic tools were blades, borers and burins. Blades, borers and burins. Then mention, further you write, the important sites from where these tools were discovered, are, so Bhimbetka you can mention. Bhimbetka will be there in all of it. Then you can mention Palavaram. Then you can mention Brahmagiri in Karnataka. Palavaram, I hope now it is in Tamil Nadu. Earlier it used to be in Andhra. So, and then Sohan Valley. Just give me 1 minute. Sohan Valley is in Pakistan. Then it is right now in Pakistan. So these are the important sites from where we have got this particular, the second category of the tools. Now let's come to the third one. So mention, third is the Upper Paleolithic phase. Upper Paleolithic phase. So Upper Paleolithic phase. Now once again, so you just need to note down the change in the shape and the size. Then so here also there is a change in the shape, and what is that? Triangular. Then So triangular tools were created, triangular stone tools were created, and moreover, the creation technology was the flint. Then, so what is flint? That flint are the small pieces which get created. So you don't that the in the flaking the pressure is going till down. Suppose if this is the tool, so pressure goes till the deep. But in flint, that very instantly very hard pressure is given to the stone and then it breaks up. Okay? So small pieces, triangular pieces get created with the flint, and flint used to be very sharp. Then, so the making process was flint, and then the characteristic tools were blades and points. So blades we have written in the previous also, but those blades were rectangular and these blades are triangular. And then, so blades and points. Moreover, as far as the upper Paleolithic phase is concerned, so the tools have been found from many parts of India. So there is a Balan Valley, which is in UP and Madhya Pradesh also. Basically, Mirzapur you all know. So Mirzapur to the Rewa area in Madhya Pradesh, that is the Balan Valley area, Satpura range. So it has been found over there. It has been found from the Allahabad area. There were areas like Sarai and Naharaya, Chupani Mando. So these places. Then in Bihar also, in Karnataka also, in Andhra also. So now this phase was prevalent mostly in major parts of India. Then now after this phase, when it is ending by 10,000 BC, so Mesolithic will start. But then before talking about the Mesolithic, there was a beginning of the painting also in this time. And these paintings are known as the Upper Paleolithic painting. Moreover, where these paintings were created, so these paintings were created at Bhimbhetka and Nahargarh in the Mirzapur area. So inside the caves, they have created the paintings, and these paintings were line diagrams, meaning created in the form of the lines. So for example, if they have to represent human beings, so they are represented with the lines. Animals, so animals are also represented with the lines. Okay? So different lines. So line diagrams were created, and these line diagrams, how they are created? So they are created by engraving on the wall. What is engraving? They are cutting, or basically they are creating spaces, scratching the wall. And in a particular shape, they have scratched the wall. थोड़े गड्ढे create हो गए. There are some crevices, and in these crevices, they are filling the color. So this type of the rock cut paintings were called as petroglyph. Then, so they were called as petroglyph. As far as the colors are concerned, so they have used naturally obtained colors like ochre, then brown, yellow, green, then these all colors are used, and the themes. So themes were concentrated around three things. One is the hunting scene, another is the gathering scene, and so as the fighting scenes. So these were the three scenes which dominated in the Upper Paleolithic age mentioned. You're right. The tools of this period, the tools of this period were created with flint technology, were created with flint technology, and and they were mostly triangular in shape. They were mostly triangular in shape. Then after you write mostly triangular in shape. The characteristic tools were the characteristic tools were blades and points. Blades and points. Full stop. These tools have been found from so once again you write Bhimbhetka, Balan Valley, Sohan Valley, Narmada, Kurnool, Sarai Naharaya, नाहराया, चौपानी, मांडो, चिरांद, it's from Bihar. The site, and these two are from UP, closer to. So Nahraya is Pratapgarh district of UP. है कुछ लोग प्रतापगढ़ी होंगे ही इस क्लास में. So now प्रतापी लोग, राजा भैया. Got it? Then mention. अब एक सब टाइटल इसमें लिखो, अपर पैलियोलिथिक पेंटिंग. विल गिव यू ब्रेक. लेट्स कंप्लीट इट. ठीक है. So mention upper Paleolithic painting. Upper Paleolithic painting. Mention. Mainly at the places like Bhimbetka, and Nahargarh in Narsingarh, sorry, not Nahargarh. Nahargarh is Jaipur. So Narsingarh area of Mirzapur, Bhimbetka and Narsingarh area of Mirzapur, rock cut cave paintings were created. Rock cut cave paintings were created. Rock cut cave paintings were created. Then mention further after it. These were line diagrams. These were line diagrams. Line diagrams created by scratching the rock with stone tool. Line diagrams created by scratching the rock with stone tool and filling it with color. Scratching the rock with stone tool and filling it with the color. Then these paintings are referred as petroglyph. These paintings are referred as petroglyph. Then petroglyph. Then mention further. Petroglyph. After it, you write. The theme of painting was mainly based on hunting, gathering, and so what kind of gathering? Here, food gathering. Okay? So food gathering and fighting scenes. Then mention. They used naturally obtained colors. They used naturally obtained colors like, so OCHRE. What is this? Ochre. Then ochre, brown, yellow, green, and red. Yellow, green, and red. Right? So this is what is about the Paleolithic phase. We'll start with the Mesolithic phase. So now you can take break. ठीक है? And I will ask you, ऐसा मजाक क्यों किया मेरे साथ? Actually, I got in message that it is art and culture class. Some of you are asking about the reference material. कितने लोगों को reference material के बारे में पूछना है? सबको पूछना है ना? So, see that already we are in December and middle of the December. So you must have finalized कि कुछ ना कुछ तो खरीद के रख लिया होगा. इस क्लास के होने का तो इंतजार नहीं किया होगा. See, देखो, so what they are asking that कि notes मेरा enough होगा. देखो पूरा कहना तो मुश्किल है, 60-70% भी हो जाए तो ठीक है. So just understand that ancient and medieval is very vast, and it's very vast. And moreover, I will be very frank and clear to you in this regard कि कोई झूठे वादे नहीं, कुछ भी ऐसा नहीं. So no matter how much you study, चाहे वो क्लास नोट्स हो या फिर दिन 2500 पेजेस की किताब हो, ठीक है? Even if you have studied, there is no guarantee that you will be able to solve all the 100% questions of the ancient in prelim stage of exam. The best possibility is 50%. Okay? So two questions, as we have seen in this last 10 years, that two questions are always same. बहुत अच्छा अगर जो paper है, तो you can solve out of 3 questions. One is always out of your ambit, and it is a difficult question. Then, so in this regard, that if you're running after so many books, I think it will not be advisable. Then, and if you have purchased some of the guidebooks from the market, so वो तो बिल्कुल helpful नहीं होने वाले हैं, ठीक है? And 75% तक हो सकता है, mostly that 75% of the questions of ancient and medieval you can solve. Either you read the class notes and some basic NCRTs, so 75% you can solve. 25% के लिए कोई रेमेडी नहीं है, ठीक है? Particularly in this particular section. So for example, that not to frighten you, but it is similar for everybody. ऐसा नहीं है कि that 75% is there for the first row and rest of the people 50%. It's similar for everyone. Paper is similar for everyone. Then, so for example, I'll give you some questions. Question was that one year नहीं, 2022 itself, ठीक है? In 2022 itself, a question was asked, Mitakshara and Dayabhag system, ठीक है? Nowhere in the ancient, any ancient particular guidebooks which are there in the market, including NCRT, Mitakshara system and Dayabhag system is mentioned. Where it is mentioned? So legal practices, basically those who are the law practitioners, when just like कि जब तुम पॉलिटी पढ़ते हो, so in polity you read historical background of the polity. If you read any literature, so in literature also you read the historical background of a literature, historical background of a particular subject, philosophy, sociology, political science. That's how historical background you read. Similarly, there is a historical background of the legal studies in India, and that historical background is only taught in the law. Then some colleges, they do teach, some colleges, they do not teach. So Mitakshara and Dayabhag system was mentioned over there. So from where you will be solving? There is no possibility that, हाँ, तुक्के में सही हो गया, that is a different thing, right? But otherwise, it is not easy to solve. Now, another thing that one year, there was a question which was asked, I'll write the name. Now, अब तो सभी को पता है, ठीक है, Magad. It is not Magad, right? So, who were the Magad? कहीं पे भी किसी गाइड बुक में not even a single NCRT has mentioned Magad. Where it was mentioned? There was a book, there is this, the thick book of the Romila Thapar, early India, then, and 800 pages are there, and the font is so small that you will have to take 2 lenses to read the book itself then. And that too on the page number 241. She is simply mentioning that Magad were the people who used to write chronicles. That's it. No other information. So there is even in the very kind of that highest possibilities also, it is not advisable or it is not actually rational to go through some of the big books of the market. So what is the best? The best is that go through the class notes, whatever you are reading over here, and apart from it, some NCRTs which I'll suggest to you. Okay? Moreover, there were the times when I used to refer to the Romila Thapar NCRT, but now that relevance has gone down related to the Romila Thapar. Now she will be no more asked. So she is a leftist writer, to be very frank. So leftist writer. So then the current times, I don't see any possibility of the leftist writing, which is based on so much of premonitions also. So for example, that in history, there is a discussion on Suddha and Asuddha history. Okay? I'm not I'll not indulge much into it. So Suddho and Ashuddho, this movement of leftism, it all started from the Bengal, whereby that the leftists, they maintained that those uncomfortable facts from the history, they must be removed and we must be maintaining something good. Then, so that's how the history was more inclined towards that the history which is more related to the teaching aspect. Then basically that giving the what effect? Then didactic effect in the society, not the negative part. So those crimes and those uncomfortable facts were removed. So that's what became the domain of the leftism. Then domain of the leftism, but then as you know that in the political discourse things change, and so as the historical orientation also change. So in the current times, I would say that even if you are history optional person, so then try to maintain a centrist approach then rather than going into the leftist approach. Okay? Now let's come back to the GS wala part. So in GS wala part, at max, I would suggest to you that you read 2 NCRTs and that is the new NCRTs. ठीक है? पुराना अब मैंने suggest करना बंद कर दिया है. Questions नहीं आ रहे हैं. So the new NCRTs are basically themes in Indian history part 1 and part 2. Themes in Indian history part 1 and part 2. And maximum from the old NCRT, there is only one which I'll suggest, R.S. Sharma. Then, so R.S. Sharma, that you can see. Ancient India, ये सब class 11th के NCRT है. ये नई NCRT है, new and from class 11th, and this is old from class 11th. Then, so you can go ahead with this NCRT. Then, and for medieval part, I would better suggest that medieval के लिए part 2 is better. Then, and this part 2 is basically medieval India, themes in Indian history, and in this one, your major focus must be on, वो भी लिख देता हूँ, विजयनगर. ठीक है? So विजयनगर इसमें से अच्छे से पढ़ लेना. You will get that possibility is there that the question is asked from the Vijayanagar. Then, इसके अलावा I would not suggest any book to you. And moreover, many of you, so let me ask this thing to you. How many of you have already purchased Tamil Nadu textbooks? Raise your hands. Good number of the people. So my question to you that, do you know Tamil? How many of you, those who have purchased? So only one person. So if you don't know Tamil, so why you are reading Tamil Nadu textbook? Because if you want to give the Tamil Nadu PCS, so then you go with the Tamil Nadu text. And for that, you will have to know the Tamil then. So the textbook is for the, it's good. Language is good. But then tell me that if there is a discrepancy in the information, then history में discrepancy होती है. Then, and from one state to other state, it happens. And basically, Tamil Nadu is one such area where they have their own cultural preservation system. So the textbook of the history over there is different from the, in many aspects from the NCRTs, even in the timeline also and even in the claims also. So tell me that if there is a discrepancy, so in the case of the discrepancy, UPSC will be taking into the consideration that NCRT or Tamil Nadu textbook. NCRT, ठीक है? So I would better suggest कि पढ़ रहे हो, पढ़ लो, ठीक है? But information wise, you will have to be very much aware. You will have to go with the information which is given in the NCRTs. Then, so if you, until and unless you are giving the state PCS exam, you can go ahead with it. So history is not economy. Understand? History is not economy. The economy textbook of the Tamil Nadu is one of the best. Then, for understanding, I don't know that you know or not. Then, for best understanding of the concept, even it is better than the NCRTs. But history, I would not suggest to you. Okay? So let's come to the part. I hope you got it. So, chalo, Mesolithic age, mention. Mesolithic age. Satish Chandra, अब पढ़ने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. Already you are reading the themes in Indian history part 2, so no requirement for Satish Chandra, requirement of Satish Chandra. You don't need to replicate the number of the books. Read one, that's enough. Okay? So, Mesolithic age. Mesolithic age. So Mesolithic age, 10,000 BCE to 6,000 BCE. Okay? So now understand that this age was basically, particularly from 10,000 to 9,000, it was a transition phase. Then, so this particular 1,000 years were transition phase, and what we mean by transition. So there was a change in the climate of the planet Earth, and that change is basically glaciation to. So ice age is over, and after this warm phase is starting. So Earth started to become warm from this point of time. Before 10,000 BCE, there were many phases of glaciation, then meaning ice ages were there. In these ice age, the human beings, their scope of moving in and dispersing in the different parts of the world was not very much possible. They were concentrated in one such area, and that too they are living inside the hiding, okay, in the caves. So, but then the glaciation phase was over, ice age was over, warm phase started, ice is melting then, and then more growth of vegetation is happening. So this is the time when the dispersal of the human beings started. Then they started to move in the different direction, and then that's how their actual activity started. So Mesolithic phase is known for the maximum evolution of the human beings then, because of their movement. Now, what are the specialities of this age? So as far as the stone tool technology is concerned, now human beings were able to create the very small tool but very sharp tool, and these small and sharp tools were called as microlith. Then, so microlith. So microlith meaning that small, but at the same point of time it was very sharp. So just like that, the pen you can easily hold from the hand, then, and easily hold from the hand, and easily you can operate from a distance. In the earlier times, then, that the tools were not operated from long distance, then you have to be running along with the animal to kill the animal. Okay? So that was the possible, that was the scene. But here बहुत दूर से ही किसी को हिट कर सकते हो. Moreover, then human beings, that the type of the tools which were created, when we look at the shape of the tools, so it gives us one such indication that maybe they have learned the art of projectile motion. So projectile motion or projectile path. You must have studied projectile motion or projectile path in your physics classes. Then not over here, but in your class 11th and 12th classes. So in projectile path, that at a certain degree, if the particular thing is launched, so it covers the maximum distance. And what is that certain degree? 45 degree. Okay? So on 45 degree, if the thing is launched, so then it covers the maximum distance. So this is what they must have developed, and we say this on the basis of the shape of the tool. One of the very popular shape of the tool was lunate tool. Then, so lunate meaning that Eid ke chand ka shape. Okay? So in that shape. So this is very effective. And this tool, if it is launched from the distance on 45 degrees, so it is very effective. In fact, they have also created not only the lunate shape tools, but also in trapezium shape. Then, so trapezium shape. Then, moreover, not bow and arrows, not at this time. Harpoons were also used. So harpoons, you understand what is harpoon? So not only stone tool they are creating, but harpoons were also used in this time, and harpoons are basically fish bone. Then already it is very sharp, as you know, that already the fish bone is very sharp. So fish bone was also used as a tool. So bone implements were also created at this time. So this is the very first information. The second is that Mesolithic age is also known for domestication of animal. So we do get the first example of the domestication of animal from the Mesolithic age. The places in India are Adamgarh in Madhya Pradesh and Bagohar in Rajasthan. So the very first evidence we have found from this area. Then Now let's come to the Mesolithic painting, so which is the most important part and most important source of information about this period. So Mesolithic painting, in terms of technology, they were also petroglyph, meaning line diagrams created on the walls of the caves. But at the same point of time, they were representative of the socio-cultural practices of that time. So in this, we particularly need to write about the number of the themes and then inferences we need to draw from the themes. Moreover, there are discussions related to the colors also. So you write this little bit and then we'll go into the Mesolithic painting. So you write that it was a transition phase. It was a transition phase between Ice Age and Ice Age and Warm phase. Ice Age and Warm phase. Done? Then mention Ice Age and Warm phase, full stop. Due to increasing temperature in the environment, temperature in the environment, human growth was further facilitated. Human growth was further facilitated. Further facilitated, and they started to move in different areas. They started to move in different areas. Then mention further. Paragraph change karo. The characteristic tool of this age, was microlith. Microlith. And they were tiny but very sharp. They were tiny but very sharp. Then mention. Moreover, they created variety of the shapes in stone tool. Variety of the shapes in stone tool, that is lunate and trapezium. That is lunate and trapezium. I think I have written. So you can mention this part. Then harpoons were also used as tool. Brackets में harpoons you can write bone of the fish or fish bone. Harpoons were also used as tool at this time. At this time. Then mention further. Microlith not only facilitated in the effective killing of animals, but also in the creation of Mesolithic painting. Once again, you change paragraph and then mention. The first evidence of domestication of animal has been found from this age, from the places like Adamgarh in Madhya Pradesh, and Bagohar in Rajasthan. Bagohar in Rajasthan. Bagohar in Rajasthan. Then, then write a heading Mesolithic painting. So mention Mesolithic painting. A subheading within it. So Mesolithic painting. Now understand. So what is there? And actually, when I was saying in the beginning, कि ancient medieval mention नहीं है mains के syllabus में. Art and culture is mentioned in the main syllabus. But then in 2015, they asked a question on the Mesolithic painting, and that too in the socio-cultural practices. So time and again they have asked. For example, even a question was asked on the Nalanda Takshashila. Okay? So generally, what happens that Nalanda Takshashila references are there in the ancient and medieval during the time of the Guptas. Okay? When we talk about the Nalanda. So what you need to do कि when you'll be writing the mains कोई किताब पढ़ने की ज़रूरत नहीं है even the NCERTs at that time just revise the class notes one time before your mains paper ठीक है so if you get a question for example there was a question very recently I think in 2018 itself so that was related to the Chinese Buddhist travelers ठीक है that their written records that what references they are giving ठीक है so what references what how they have painted the Indian society. So this is obviously we are reading in the ancient and medieval. So be prepared for it that alternate year there used to be one question from this particular part in the mains exam. 2022 का भी mains paper उठा के देखो. So then there was one question which was more orientation of the ancient and medieval. I hope you got it then. So उस time पे in the mains exam in prelims you are reading the NCERTs but in the mains exam just go through the notes, don't refer to anything else. ठीक है? So let's come back to this part. So Mesolithic painting, understand. So it is mainly noted for two things. One is the color and second is the theme. So let's talk about the color first. So they were also using, it is also a petroglyph painting, but in the term of the finesse, then so finesse, so it is much better than the upper Paleolithic. Then apart from it, variety of the themes were there and natural colors were used, but red was the dominating color. The interesting aspect is that the red color was the dominating and it was mainly sourced from the animal blood. Then, so animal blood was used for red color, majority of the places. Then, now we need to understand that why animal blood, but before that, in rest of the colors, suppose they are using yellow, green, brown, rest of the colors, what they were doing that they were mixing egg yolk into it. Mixing egg yolk into it. And do you know that why egg yolk is mixed in the color? What effect it will give? Egg yolk has a, yes, please. Yes, very good, exactly, lipid. So egg yolk, as you know, it is fully cholesterol. Then cholesterol is a lipid. Then, and as you see that outer part of the egg, we call it albumin. Okay? Albumin is the protein that you eat, and then the inner part is the egg yolk, which is completely cholesterol. So there are many such things related to the cholesterol. That cholesterol generally regarded as a bad lipid, but it is not that bad. Then it is the basis of the birth. If there would be no cholesterol in the body, so your emergence would not happen. Okay? Discussion is going little off from this, but particularly that when you look at the female body, so if the cholesterol is not there, so egg formation will not happen. And if egg formation will not happen, so there would be no fertilization and there is no emergence of any living being. So understand, here, अब इस discussion को तुम लोग biology में आगे refer करना, I would not go ahead with it. Now let's look at this one. So mixing egg yolk, it was to give an effect of the oily texture to the color. And moreover, when this is mixed with the color, so it is that mixed with the color and further it is emulsified. So emulsification effect is given in the color. When the emulsification happens, so color stays for longer. Then now You must have heard this time that ki emulsified color hai jo ghar pe lagwaya hai, theek hai? What do you mean by emulsified color? The one which is going to stay for a longer period of time. So emulsification is the process. So in this process, what you do that you mix the color and you shake it for a longer duration. Then, and that's how that bubbles will get created and the color will be fastened. Then, so this is one thing that they were doing, meaning that their understanding, their knowledge, their intelligence is further enhancing. And how they must have done it. So why blood? So as you know, that blood also they must have noted down that blood increases the longevity of the painting. Because blood, automatically blood has a lipid. In what form? It has cholesterol and it has lipids. What lipids? Triglycerides. Okay? So triglycerides, and as you know, that LDL, HDL, बहुत सारे तुम नाम जानते होगे, ठीक है? So it has those lipids, and because of those lipids, the blood stain stays for long. Right? So they noted down, and that's how they started using the blood in the red color, and in rest of the color they were mixing the egg yolk. Moreover, we can also say that conclude that using the blood was optimum utilization of the resources. Then animal को kill कर ही रहे थे, बेचारे मर रहे थे, so then obviously then blood is getting spilled, so let's use it. Then so this is one part. Then let's come to the theme part. So theme part I will be writing over here. They created variety of the themes in their painting, which was not only the continuation from the previous phase. So previous phase में क्या लिखा था हमने? Hunting, then food gathering, then and fighting. So they are continuing with this all sort of things, but इसके अलावा they are adding few more stuff. So after this, household chores, they were also depicted. Then household chores के अलावा animal riding, again, this was also depicted. Then group dance, celebration, sexual union, phallus worship, and accordingly yoni worship was also depicted. Okay? So these all are the new themes that we are seeing at this point of time. Hunting, gathering, fighting continued. Okay? But let's talk about the others. Then, so generally, then inferences we need to draw from it. And what are the inferences? So when you look at the hunting, so who were depicted in the hunting? Males. Then fighting, males. Food gathering, females. Then household, females. Then now on the basis of it, that this depiction, any conclusion that you can make about it? It is depicting sexual division of labor. So we can talk about sexual DOL, sexual division of labor. That particular works would be performed by the females and particular works would be performed by the males. Then apart from it, let's come to the animal riding. What does it suggest? Domestication of animal. See, you cannot ride an animal without domesticating it. And how you domesticate the animal? By taming the animal. Without taming the animal, you cannot ride. So you cannot ride a lion without taming it. And that is not to be tamed. So it itself is indicative of the domestication of animals. Then what about these two? So group dance and celebration, what it suggests? Social gathering, ठीक है? But कुछ और? Communism. Not communism will become different. Community sense. So community sense. Now, so I will further talk about it. So you tell me that basically when we talk about these two themes, celebration and group dance, what is the basic requirement for that? What is? Festival. Happiness. Music. Yes? Who said? Once again, loud. The basic requirement for the group dance is the group of people. And for celebration also, group of people. So first let's talk about the group dance. So basic requirement is the group of people. Moreover, this group dance that we are referring over here, It is that it is indicative of not only the community sense but also coordination and cooperation between the people. Most important is the coordination. Why coordination? Because in the group dance, what is the main that requirement that everybody must be doing the same step. Then so there must be synchronization between them. It cannot happen with the without the coordination. It's not like the Indian marriages जहाँ पे सब लोग ग्रुप में तो डांस करते हैं but ग्रुप डांस नहीं करते हैं, ठीक है? So सब अपने अपने ही धुन में करते हैं, ये देश है वीर जवानों का. So मुझे आज तक नहीं समझ में आया कि शादियों में इस गाने का क्या मतलब है. शादी में जा रहे हो वीर जवानों का, देन सो नाउ नहीं, शहीद तो एक हो रहा होता है, बाकी खुशी मना रहे होते हैं. So now celebration. So in celebration also, do you consider that in celebration can happen only in the groups, or basically the basic thing of the celebration is the group? Is it like so? किसी कोई बोलता है कि नहीं सेलिब्रेशन तो अकेले में भी कर सकते हैं, ठीक है? तो जब अकेले में सेलिब्रेशन करोगे तो लोग तुम्हें पागल कहेंगे, ठीक है? And moreover, what if, just think about it, what if that you clear this exam with the rank 1 and your family members are like that कि कौन सा बड़ा तीर मार लिया. So गई कहाँ गई celebration. Then so for celebration also that there is a sense of sharing, ठीक है? That your happiness is shared by the people, ठीक है? Your nears and dears one. Then so here community sense is the most important. Then now let's come to this part. So sexual union. So without any slang or basically taboo, you need to think about the sexual union as a most important act on the planet Earth. Without it, then that no progeny can move further forward. It is an important act for the kingdom, not kingdoms, for the planet Earth to survive. So sexual union was depicted by them. They have also observed that this is the important thing. Then after, the sexual union is going with this further, phallus worship and yoni worship. What is phallus? So phallus is one of the most primitive type of the worship in the world, not just India, but all over the world. And that is the sexual organ of the male, because it is considered as the most potent thing, because of which the next progeny comes. And so as the sexual organ of the female is the yoni. Then, so the worship of these two organs is all about wishing for the next generation, okay? The children's. Then so this is the most primitive form of the worship, and sexual union is also depicting that primitive form of the marriage. Then so this is what we see from these themes, and we get some idea about the socio-cultural practices of the Mesolithic time. So now you can write, mention. So Mesolithic painting you have written. So very first thing you write, it was also a petroglyph painting. It was also a petroglyph painting created on the walls of the caves. Created on the walls of the caves. Then mention. Then in terms of aesthetic value, it was quite better. It was quite better than the previous age. Quite better than the previous age. Then mention. They mainly used colors like red, green, yellow, brown, full stop. Then mention. Red was the dominating color. Red was the dominating color, and it was mainly sourced from animal blood. It was mainly sourced from animal blood. Animal blood. Then further to write after it, mainly sourced from animal blood, full stop. Moreover, in the other colors, egg yolk was added. Egg yolk was added. In the other colors, egg yolk was added to give emulsifier effect. To give emulsifier effect. And these colors increased the longevity of the painting. These colors increased the longevity of the painting. Longevity of the painting. Then mention further. Increase the longevity of the painting. The themes of Mesolithic painting. The themes of Mesolithic painting depict. The themes of Mesolithic painting depict socio-cultural practices of that time. The themes of Mesolithic painting depict socio-cultural practices of that time. Full stop. Then you write. Wide variety of themes were painted. Wide variety of themes were painted, which are as follows. Then mention. So you write this entire list. Hunting, food gathering, fighting, household chores, animal riding, group dance, celebration, sexual union, phallus worship, and yoni worship. Then don't go into imagination, just write. इतना टाइम नहीं लगना चाहिए, ठीक है? So now mention that these themes indicate practices like sexual division of labor. These themes indicate practices like sexual division of labor, domestication of animal, development of community sense, primitive concept of marriage, and primitive idea of worship. Then, so this is what is about the Mesolithic painting. Okay? So now, let's come to the last phase, that is the Neolithic phase. So mention Neolithic phase. So Neolithic phase as 6,000 from 6,000 to 3,000 roughly. Okay? And then what are the developments? So the tool which was there in the previous age, what was the name? Microlith. So they are continuing with the same tool, that is microlith, but with some changes. And what are these changes? So changes are basically polishing of the tool. Okay? So one thing that they have done, that now they are polishing the tool. Now the same tool becomes much more effective when it is polished. Then when the tool is rough, so then it is little less effective but than the polished one. So for example, even if you look at the bullets that we use in the guns, then so bullets are also highly polished, very shiny, because it increases the effectiveness of the bullet. Then so that's one thing they have done. And this is also the time when we have started seeing the use of the or creation of the bow and arrows. Then so they also started creating this and using it. Then so that is in terms of tool technology. But then in this Neolithic age itself, okay, that people have come to know that they have started using one of the first metal used by humanity, and that was copper. Right? So uh, related to this, copper was the first metal which was used by the humanity. But tell me that in which part of the world for the very first time copper was used? Which area? बताओ. गलत. Even if it is wrong, so just so you, where? Afghanistan, Kazakhstan. ठीक है, अब रहने दो. So for the very first time, the copper was used in Syria. Then, and actually, Syria is considered as the cradle of the world civilization. Syria was the part of the Mesopotamian civilization. In fact, as far as the details are concerned, Syria is ascribed with many of the first in the world. So copper, and the second is that for the first time in the world, agricultural practices started in Mesopotamia. And which location? Syria. Then so first agricultural practices in the world. In fact, the foundation of the Islamic architecture was all laid down in the Syria and the place called Babylon, then in the old world. So Syria was considered as the cradle of civilization, but unfortunate that in the present time, the Syria is no more similar way. And it is just because of the global politics which has ruined the economy and the people of the Syria. Then, so now, let's come to this part. So in India, in Neolithic phase itself, people got to know about the copper. But the most important thing that we need to mention over here, for the first time, agricultural practices started in India. Then, and these agricultural practices which started in India, which place? Mehergarh in Balochistan of Pakistan. ठीक है. So in Mehergarh area of Balochistan area of Pakistan, that it all started. Now understand that when we say agricultural practices, does it mean that before the Mesolithic age, human beings were not eating anything related to agriculture or any plant produce? Were they eating? They were eating. ठीक है. So they were eating, but the things which were grown in the wild. What is agricultural practice? On regular basis cultivating a particular crop, that's what we call agriculture. Then, so for example, that suppose they have identified that wheat is something that we can eat, so then they are regularly cultivating the wheat. So that would be agriculture. But then earlier, कहीं पे भी कुछ भी मिल गया तो खा लिया, ठीक है? So that they were using the plant produce, but in the wild, which were grown in the wild. So that is one part. So moreover, so agricultural practices started at this point of time, and pottery also made, so wheel made pottery also made its appearance at this point of time. Okay? So second development was the wheel made pottery also made appearance at this time. Moreover, that not only wheel made pottery, but another important development was people started to live in the communities and permanent houses. So they started creating thatched houses. Okay? So thatched houses, and they are living in the thatched houses. Another very important development is related to fire. Done? So can you predict that when the fire was discovered by the human beings? No, it cannot be predicted. Then it is obviously that fire incidents were happening right from the inception of the planet Earth. So discovery of the fire is not right word. Then fire was already there then on the planet Earth. So what is important over here, that human beings are able to observe fire, but initially they were fearful. In this particular age, the human beings all over the world, in the Neolithic age only, they learned how to control fire. Then So that is important. How to control fire? They mastered the controlled use of fire. So what is controlled use of fire? Basically, that they must be knowing that how many minutes they will be putting this water on fire, and they are removing so that the temperature is comfortable, we can have it. Then, so that is the controlled use of fire. If you leave it for longer duration, you cannot drink it. Then moreover, if you're cooking the food, so how much time you'll be cooking the food so that it is good? Then it is not burnt. So that is the controlled use of fire. When they are baking the pottery, so they know that how much temperature or how much time they will be baking the pottery so that it must not break. So that is the controlled use of fire. So that's how man, one of the major invention, you can say, and major development in the human mind was to control fire. Then, so this is what they learned at this point of time, and that's how this particular attribute has further facilitated many aspects of the civilization. So you mentioned, you're right in this part. So the microlith of previous phase, the microlith of previous phase continued at this time. The microlith of previous phase continued at this time, but now it was polished. But now it was polished. Then mention. Moreover, human beings also started. Moreover, human beings also started using bow and arrows. Using bow and arrows. Then you write. For the first time, the interface of humanity with copper happened. Interface of humanity with copper happened in this age. Then mention. Another major development of this phase was agricultural practices. Emergence of agricultural practices. Which started from Mehergarh area of Balochistan. Mehergarh area of Balochistan. Then mention after it. So Mehergarh area of Balochistan, full stop. Human beings started to live in community in permanent thatched houses. Full stop. Wheel made pottery was also created at this time. Wheel-made pottery was also created at this time. And finally, one of the important achievement of human beings, in this age, was mastering the art of controlled use of fire. Then, so this is what is about this Stone Age part. ठीक है. So Stone Age part, and as it must have been expected by the people that Stone Age will become stone, we will be bit boring. So it is not actually boring at all. So कल कौन सी क्लास है हमारी? आर्ट एंड कल्चर या एंशियंट मेडिवल? कल नहीं है, एक ही थी. संडे नहीं, संडे वी डोंट हैव क्लास. वे मैंने ऑफ ले लिया है. So you don't have class then. वो information change नहीं हुआ है. I think they need to change it then. So चलो. So anyways, next week we'll be starting with the Indus Valley civilization. ठीक है. चलो. Thank you.